and certainly, and certainly welcome everyone this afternoon. And also, I'm assuming I don't know who the guests are at this point, but Michael, I'm sure you will call them up. I'd like to do a roll call, if we would, Michael, and just introduce ourselves, and maybe just again, because it's been a while since we got together, is maybe share just maybe a tidbit about your background. So I'll start with myself. I'm Jesus Sanchez, the chair of the committee, and a little bit of my background. I'm a graduate from UW in history. That's my major. And I also volunteer in the healthcare industry, healthcare communities with communities that are not for profit, like Seymour Community Health. Currently, I just retired, Michael, from Seymour
Congratulations.
a month ago. Decided to retire, but I'm now on the board. I've been asked to sit on the board as well as continue to volunteer for developing and programming for scholarships for young students who want to pursue their dreams. So let's go to, I guess I can call some of your names. Let's go to Jackie. Morning, good afternoon, Jackie.
There we go. Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me. I'm Jackie Cook. I work for the Colville Confederated Tribes as the repatriation specialist and collection manager. Graduate of Eastern Washington, oh no, Central Washington University and the University of Oklahoma.
Thank you. Let's go to Douglas. Douglas Ito.
Hi, Douglas Ito, managing member partner at SMR Architects, formerly on the Washington Trust Board and board president, on the AA Washington Council Board and board president, on committees and boards all over the place. Primarily do affordable housing for nonprofits throughout Washington State, and involved with historic preservation and UW, and live in Shoreline, Washington.
Okay, thank you for that. Lynn?
Hi, Lynn Mandyke from Spokane, Washington, obviously. I also graduated from Eastern Washington University, and I represent heritage organizations being Spokane Preservation Advocates.
Thank you for that. And where did I see, did I see Robert? Oh, there he is. Bob?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, Robert Bob Mack. I'm a lawyer in Tacoma. I've worked in state government, lobbied for a number of years. Was at deputy director at Tacoma Public Utilities, and I'm a former of almost everything. So I was a former member of the board of the Washington Environmental Council, FutureWise, and the Washington Trust. My undergraduate degree was in history, and I suppose it's good news that I'm going to be attending my 50th law school reunion in a few weeks. So, and I'm quasi-retired at this point.
Good. Thank you for that. And let's see, did I see Eugenia? Eugenia, I feel like saying Eugenia because that's a Spanish name, but I want to pronounce it as Eugenia, but Eugenia, would you
That
please?
that's fine. I like the Spanish pronunciation. Thank you, everyone. Sorry I'm a little late. Hi, everyone. My name is Eugenia Wu, and I'm the architectural historian member of the ACHP. And I've been on this for a long time. I've been on this committee for a long time. Anyway, so my day job, I'm the director of preservation services at Historic Seattle. So I live here in Seattle, Washington. Um, I'm on the I'm the board president of Dogo Momo Wiwa, which is a modern architecture nonprofit. Also a board president of For Culture, and yeah, just involved in a lot of different things. I'm happy to always review these nominations. I really appreciate being on this council. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Zach, you just recently joined us. You want to?
Hey there.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, my name is Zach Wellington. I just recently changed my name, Michael, so I need to update that website. But I am a resident of Whidbey Island. I am a marine surveyor, so I'm like a house inspector, but for boats, and I specialize in wooden boats. Have a passion for our historic vessels in the maritime world here in Washington. So excited to be reviewing a historic maritime vessel today.
Thank you. And see who else we left. Leave anybody else out, Michael? I don't want to leave anyone else.
I think that's it for the board today.
Okay.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Michael Hauser. I'm the state architectural historian and staff to this illustrious group of folks. It's great to see some names and a couple faces. We've been doing a lot of back and forth with nominations over the last couple months. So it'd be great to sort of see those move forward today. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We're going to go pretty fast in terms of the review today. So that's not to say that your nominations are not important, but we got a lot of things to look at and short amount of time to do it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started then, Michael, and go through our agenda process. And
Sounds
I
good.
think, go ahead.
Oh, that sounds good. Dr. Brooks is not here today, but in her stay, Kim Gant is here.
Hi, everyone. This is Kim Gant, Built Environment Unit Manager here at the DAP. Just a brief update that will be interesting to the group. We have announced the 2025 SHPO Awards. So I'm going to post a link here in the chat. I've just updated the website so you can see all the wonderful awards. One of them is an SMR project. Yay! SMR, but some really great awards. The Weyerhaeuser Office Building, 7th Street Theater in Hoquiam. If you haven't seen that one yet, it's amazing. So I encourage everyone just to check it out. We'll be posting social media and all sorts of other good things about the award winners on our social media very soon. But welcome all. Thank you for joining us and being a part of this.
Thank you, Kim. So do we need, at this point then, Michael, go through the agenda and have approved elements on the agenda?
Yeah, I guess next on the agenda is an update from our friend Chris Moore at the Washington Trust.
Okay.
I saw Chris. There he is.
Hello,
Okay.
everybody. Can you guys hear me just fine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks once again for having us. I'm Chris Moore. I'm Executive Director with the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation. We work very closely with DAP on a lot of programs, so I appreciate being invited to give a brief update. So I'll go through things quickly. I know you guys have a full agenda, but first, really excited to announce that the Places Conference will be taking place October 8th through 10th in Gig Harbor, and that is our conference done in partnership with DAP, focusing on downtown revitalization. It's a great opportunity for our Main Street communities to gather, and as well, those practitioners in historic preservation. This year, we're really pleased that we are having a track that works on maritime. So, Zach, maybe you'll be interested in this, but because we manage the Maritime Washington National Heritage Area, and because we are in Gig Harbor, which has a great maritime community and legacy, we wanted to make sure that we were offering educational sessions and information around maritime heritage as well. So I'll put a link in the chat. Hopefully, folks on the line can attend and be a part of that conference. We do it every year, and it keeps growing. We expect about 300 or so attendees. So it's really a really great opportunity. And I know that Dr. Brooks will be announcing the DAP SHPO Awards as part of the opening plenary of that conference, and there'll be, I think, some exhibits about the awards as well. So we're really pleased about that. Just quickly, one of the other programs we work on with DAP is the capital grant programs. Those are capital grants for courthouses, barns, historic cemeteries, and historic theaters. And quick update, we have 11 county courthouses that are receiving grants through DAP's program in the 25-27 biennium. Contracts for those are out. We're getting ready to finalize them and get them in place so that work can begin. If you have a historic barn or you know someone who has a historic barn, the application cycle is open right now for grants through DAP's Heritage Barn program. So I'll put a link to those applications as well in the chat. They're due October 19th, so just a little bit under a month from now. We're excited to do another round of barn grants, and at the end of the day, there'll probably be about $1 million available to go out as matching grants, which is really wonderful. We also at the Washington Trust have our own little grant program. It's not quite as big as $1 million for barns, but it is the Valerie Savinsky Grant Program, and we do grants of about $3,000 or so. They make a huge difference to some of our smaller historical organizations to help us seed money, to help with a project that they want to get off the ground. So I will also put a link in to that if you are someone on the ACHP who knows people who might be interested. That's great. If you are a guest attending this this meeting because you have a resource that's being considered and it needs some work, I certainly would encourage you to take a look at our Savinsky Grant Program as well. Two quick, Michael, when was the last time, I'm forgetting, but when was the last time the ACHP met?
We met in April.
You met in April. Okay, so in April, that was the legislative session was still taking place, still going on.
Yep.
You guys have probably talked about the passage of, I'm forgetting the bill number, but a bill that did change the way local designation occurs in local communities across the state. So I just wanted to highlight that because it's something that we're watching and we'll see what additional legislation might be coming in this upcoming session. But I mention it because the legislation actually at this point now requires owner consent for any historic resource to be listed in a local register. So it doesn't impact what this body does, but at the local level, it certainly has an impact in Seattle, in Tacoma, in some areas of King County, in that owner consent is now required for that local listing. So there's been a lot of talk about this in the preservation community, and we anticipate additional legislation, perhaps not directly related to local designation, but certainly related to the way housing is able to be created and incentives for that. So we want to continue to find good alignment with historic preservation and housing as opposed to some of the other challenges that have been portrayed. And then finally, just at the national level, just to give some folks a sense of some things happening there that we've been involved in as an advocacy organization. You may recall a few months ago, there was an executive order from the administration around restoring truth and sanity to American history. That was followed up by an order from the Secretary of the Interior to sort of implement that executive order in public lands, including national parks, public lands associated with the Forest Service and other places. And I mention this because the acting director of the National Park Service has issued a memo for that agency that is really requiring all parks to take a look at things like signage and exhibits and the way American history is portrayed, ultimately in a way to comply with the executive order, which, and I'm paraphrasing, but which is to paint American history in a good positive light and celebrate the achievements, of which there are many. But as we know, history is not universally pretty across the board, and we need to make sure that that we are telling the full story. I say all this because there is a congressional letter being circulated and ultimately will be sent to the acting director of the Park Service, basically asking for an update on what they've uncovered in some of their actions, what impacts, if any, are we going to see as a result of this executive order. We've been encouraging our congressional delegation here from Washington State to sign on to that letter. Again, we think it's really important in terms of how how our past is portrayed. So just one piece of national advocacy that we're engaged in. And I know you got a lot to cover, Michael, so I will end with my comments and certainly welcome any questions people might have.
I have a question.
Bob, happy to have it.
Well, I have two questions, actually. I don't want to take up too much time, and also I haven't registered yet, but my great grandmother was a Scansy, so I need to register for the
You must
thing
be
in
there.
Harbor. The legislation also, if I recall, prohibits listing buildings under a certain age, and limits them to very old buildings. Am I correct? Something like 100 years.
So the nuances, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and Eugenia can probably correct me, but I think a building has to be at least 40 years old to be listed locally, and that is a change for Seattle, which prior had allowed buildings up to 25 years old. And then the owner consent piece is in place except for buildings that are over 100 years old.
Oh, okay.
So if there is a building that's over 100 years old,
125.
sorry, thank you,
Right.
Eugenia. 125 years old, then owner consent is not required. So right now, that puts us at anything that is pre-1900. Owner consent is no longer is not required, but anything after 1900, as of 2025, owner consent would be required.
My second question may be perceived as political, so it might be out of order. But I was not involved as much as I should have been in that. But what I did, what I gathered from talking to some legislative staff and seeing the efforts that the rest of you put in was first that I think the state agencies are limited in any negative comments or comments to the legislature that might direct them in the right direction. But second, and I don't mean this as a criticism of any organization, I think our message, our messages on this tend to be within the people who agree with us, which is within our community. I have a sense that the legislature is predominantly made up of members who have no idea about the impact of historic preservation, even in their own communities. And I think we're perceived, I'm afraid there's going to be another wave of legislation, supposedly to create low income housing that attacks historic preservation. That's my sense. So I think we may have to rethink our messages and I'm derelict on this, and reach out to legislators and try to explain to them who we are and what we do. But I may have been a minority on that.
No, I appreciate your comments, Bob. You're absolutely right that the agency, I don't, unless asked, doesn't have the ability to
Right.
weigh in on those sorts of pieces. Obviously, as an advocacy organization, we do, and I would agree with your assessment that many in the legislature simply aren't aware of some of the impacts that are going on, and it's something that we are actively working on.
Well, I'd like to help, so thank you.
I'll reach out to you, Bob, because I've already got some ideas.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Appreciate your presentation this afternoon. Is there anyone else that has any questions of Chris?
Chris, it might be worth mentioning that DAP and the Trust will be releasing in the next couple months some more grant opportunities. Right? You want to
Yep.
chime in
Sorry,
on that? Yeah.
we are also, there was also additional funding provided for the Historic Cemetery and Historic Theater grant programs. And so we are anticipating the release of those applications in mid-October. Those will be released concurrently, and there'll be probably a couple months time when those will be open. And so we'll get information out about those as well. There's about $500,000 in each of those two programs to go out as grants. So it was really great to see that there were some challenges in the last legislative session, but from a capital grant standpoint, it was good to see these programs continued to be funded so that DAP can continue that great work.
Okay, Great. Thank you very much. Well, then let's move on. Again, Chris, thank you for your presentation this afternoon. Michael, I think we move on to the next item, and that would be any discussions of issues or any interest from from the public. Is that correct?
Yeah, for things that are not on the agenda, if there's any questions from the general public.
I don't hear any at this point, or so I think we may go ahead and go on to review the nominations.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, first one on the agenda, I guess, Denny Blaine Park.
Yeah, I'm going to
Walk us through that.
pull up my screen
Who
here.
was
What are you seeing?
okay? We have the.
Are you seeing my presenter view or my regular view?
Presenter
I
view.
think you have your presenter view, but Denny Blaine Park is the small little picture, and then there's a greater picture of the actual facility, or at least the office of the
Yeah.
DAP.
Let me try this again, and
Okay.
so you can see my regular view. How's that?
Blank right now.
There it
Now
is.
it's just there. Okay.
Perfect.
Great. All right. Well, the first nomination that we're looking at today is Denny Blaine Park. This was originally known as Whitman Place, and it's historically significant for its direct connection to outdoor recreation development in Seattle, and more specifically to counterculture community in the late 19th, 20th century. More recently, it has had a direct connection to the queer community of Seattle, developed as a public space. Um, the park has a long and vivid history as this location of conflict between nearby residents and visitors from other parts of the city. It's due to the relative isolation of the park within the city, that the privacy that was afforded by its terraces of affiliated outsiders has been a contentious topic really since its creation. And the main source of conflict revolves around its history as an unofficial clothing optional beach. Yeah, it's a nude beach. In the early 20th century, um, reportedly, neighbors tried to keep black residents from the nearby central district from visiting the park. They put up signs in the neighborhood. In the 21st century, it's LGBTQ users who have faced various attempts to be driven out of the park by nearby neighbors as well. Now, the area surrounding the park was developed just after the turn of the century by Charles Denny and Albert Blaine. Their Denny Blaine Lake Park Tract. Um, which was platted following the contours of the natural topography, attracted some of Seattle's really elite of the area. Their sloped views of the site and access to Lake Washington gave it a great place to build a house, and it was conveniently located at the end of a trolley line as well. So it attracted lots of folks to build a neighborhood. Within the development track, Denny and Blaine, they included several parks and or open spaces. One of these was Denny Blaine Park. Um, it was designated, or was designed rather, with a turnaround, which was originally called Whitman Place, as I mentioned before. The park was designated, had a little fountain in the middle of it as well. And then it allowed for easy launch of boat access. You can see this historic postcard up here for a landing spot for non-motorized boats. However, due to the completion of the lake, due to the completion of the Mott Lake Cut, the Lake of Washington and Lake Union were lowered in 1917 by a full 9 feet. If you could imagine that. So this is connecting where basically the Ballard locks are, kind of resulted in leaving this boat landing, which you see here, high and dry. So the result now is a sandy and small pebble beach that we see today. Now, the park's isolation also allowed conventional thoughts of modesty at the park to be challenged. And on that front, some tension was reported as early as the 1930s. Some appeared to have kind of waned until the 1970s, until several women at the park were arrested for sunbathing topless. This is in the 1970s. These women predominantly identified themselves as lesbian. They referred to the park as Daikiki Beach. Um, that's a combination of the words like Dyke and Waikiki Beach, obviously. And the earliest arrest that we know is sort of verified about the beach may have been that of Cappy Kitts, who on June 18th, 1982, was cited for being topless while sunbathing. This was just a criminal misdemeanor at the time. Now, the idea of Denny Blake Park was considered a nude beach was an open secret amongst the population. It was one of several other nude beaches in and around Seattle. It was well advertised, even the local papers, that it was a nude beach. It wasn't a surprise to anybody. Um, in the 1980s, the park was also openly used by the LGBTQ plus community. In fact, in 1986, it served as host for the Swim for Liberty celebration, which was a gay games that was hosted in San Francisco, and there were some organizing events that happened at the park. One of the many sort of things that happened related to that LGBTQ plus community. Now, while Denny Blaine since then, rather, the clothing optional use at Denny Blaine has become and continues to become more diverse across gender, across sexual orientation. Since the mid 2010s, the park has continued to grow in popularity, including a substantial increase by the transgender community. While Denny Blake Park is not officially designated by the Seattle Parks Department as a clothing optional park, it has been recognized as its use, especially by the queer community, for over 50 years. Today, the park serves as a reminder to the sort of diverse lifestyles throughout the city of Seattle and the various efforts by these communities to protect their shared experiences and places of importance to them. Um, Today, this will be the first nude beach that we've listed. When we talk about first, more importantly, however, it's the first resource that we've looked at that recognizes within the nomination itself a direct connection to the LGBTQ plus community. So that is an exciting piece. Right now, we have a grant out to explore listing some other sites, but this one will be the first that we'll have listed if it's listed today. The nomination itself was prepared by Colleen Kimsey Love, who I think is on the call today. And I'd like to recommend a listing of this resource to the Washington State Heritage Register. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Colleen Kimsey Love. I'm here in the audience and available for any questions or comments if needed.
Hi, Colleen. Thank you for joining us.
So I have been tapped to make the nomination, but before that, I'd like to say a few words. As a member of the LGBTQ community, I am glad that I am able to nominate this first nomination for DAP. It is, and with my conservative hat, the people who complain about this park should know that they bought their places with this in existence with a long history, so they cannot really complain about it. I would move that we list the Denny Blaine Park in Seattle to the Washington State Heritage Register.
I'll second.
You're on mute, Jesus. You're on mute again.
There we go. Thank you.
There it is.
I'm still technically challenged, even after using this computer, laptop all the time. Again, I've got a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
Very, very detailed and well-written report.
Okay.
Thank you, Colleen.
All right. Hearing none, I'd like to then move that to a vote, and I'll call for the question here. All those in favor of listing Denny Blaine Park to the Washington Heritage Register, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations and thank you very much, Doug and Maddie. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys. I could not be more thrilled. I think this is going to lead to some exciting things for the park. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Colleen. We appreciate it.
Okay. We move on to do we move on to the next item, which is the Longview Country Club, Michael?
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Um, this is a pretty interesting nomination as well, and it's another first for us. This is a Longview Country Club, which opened in at this spot in 1927. It's historically significant as the oldest golf club in Cowlitz County, and it's one of the earliest recreational institutions in the planned city of Longview. Um, Founded in 1923, just before the city's formal incorporation, the club reflects this foresight as early civic and business leaders, many of whom were associated with the founder, lumber magnate Robert Long. Among Long's goals for the planned community was not only to build a city of industry, but it was also to help establish a successful community, which could be enhanced by various forms of community enrichment, and golf was one of them. Golf was part of the early development plan that was laid out by the initial landscape firm who did the design for the planned city. You can see this little shot here of an insight, little detail. It says proposed golf course up on the top. The nomination, we're nominating it as a district. It has several resources that span a time frame from 1927 to, I guess, 1980s, if you will, that reflect the growth of the club itself, the growth of the golf course, and the changing needs as a club throughout the years. The nominated course was designed by prominent Pacific Northwest golf architect Francis James and reflects early 20th century trends in golf course design and remains fairly or largely intact, rather. During this formative period, course design emphasized a natural sort of strategic play, careful integration of the landscape with existing contours, so not a lot of moving of dirt, kind of using the land, as you will, skewing the sort of grid geometry that happened previous to this in favor of layouts that celebrate the character and challenges of these natural terrain. So it's a pretty hilly course if you played it. James himself is an important golf course architect who designed many, many golf courses, both large and small, all across the Puget Sound area during the 1920s. The club itself was formed in 1923 and quickly became the place to play golf in the region. By 1928, the club had 120 members. Remember, this is the 20s, right? So it may not seem like a big number today, but it was back in the day. The first course that they had was opened in 1924. It was a much smaller, flatter course down the hill from the existing course. It was a 9-hole, and it was created on agricultural land, so it was pretty flat site. The current nominated course opened for play on April 30th, 1930. It had 9 holes at first. The bottom of the lower 9 for play opened in 1961. As the earliest institutional establishments in Longview, the country club became a physical and social extension of sort of how the city progressive planning ideals came about. It offered not only recreation and respite for business leaders, city officials, families who shaped Longview's early identity, while also playing this role in the decision-making and civic network of the city as well, kind of this hub of activity, if you will. It did not operate as a municipal course. It was a private club, membership only, but was open to all residents of Longview and its vicinity. It remains kind of in this scenario today. It's still a private club. Its founding also paralleled with a much broader national trends of golf in general and as a symbol of modernity and civic ambition. There are lots of golf courses that were built in the mid-1920s across the state. This particular golf course is going to be the first one that we've ever looked at. So here's another first for us, believe it or not. Opening the course in 1930 was preceded by the completion of a clubhouse, which was opened in 1927. This is a little bird's eye view of the clubhouse. It was designed by local architect Archibald Torbett, who designed many homes and structures throughout the city. The clubhouse structure was financially donated by R.A. Long himself, the founder of Longview, who would actually go on to carry the club financially during the difficult times of the 1930s as well. He's the patron saint of Longview, right? Over the years, the clubhouse and the course have grown. They've added a pool. There's been several expansions to the clubhouse. There's a driving range. There's a pro shop. There's a maintenance shop. Things were added. But the course remains largely intact today, and it continues to sort of exemplify this design philosophies of its original designer, James, from the 1920s, and this natural environment. For over a century, Longview Country Club has served as a hub for this recreation and socialization in town as community leadership. It has hosted countless civic gatherings, banquets, weddings, tournaments, holiday events, you name it, sort of playing the central role in the city. The nomination was written by club member Bart Fennell. I saw Bart's on the call today, and I'd like to recommend listing to the Washington Heritage Register.
Thank you for that, Michael.
Mhm.
Okay, so do we have who would be on point for this one?
Well, I think maybe we should open it up to the general public and see if they want to add anything. Bart, did you want to add any
Sure.
comments?
Yeah, I first off, I just want to thank you, Michael, for your guidance and support in helping me draft this application. This is really an important landmark here in the cornerstone of our community. And I think it is something that would be really a great privilege and honor to be on the Washington Heritage Registry. And I just want to thank the Historic Preservation Advisory Council and its members for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Bart. Is there anyone else that we have noted for this particular one that would like to speak? Okay, hearing none. Then, Michael, shall we move the question then to whom? Who's taking lead on this one?
It's me, Jose. Jose's. This was a well-written nomination and very tight, very elegant, somewhat like the physical manifestation of this golf course. Not being a golfer, once again, I learned a lot about Longview, being an East Sider, and understanding it's, golf is just really important in Indian country as well. We have one now. And Spokane had one of the earliest ones, which is interesting. But so I learned a lot. And I would move that we list the Longview Country Club in Longview, Washington, to the Washington Heritage Register.
Is there a second?
Second, this is Eugenia.
Thank you, Eugenia. Okay, we have a first and second for the motion to move the Longview Country Club to the Washington Heritage Register. So call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries, and we'll now then move that on to list it to the Washington Heritage Register. And I want to thank you, Bart, for your commentary, as well as Michael for your description of the facility. It was really nice. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I've had different conversations with folks over the years about listing golf courses, so this is a good test case, and gives us a sort of mark. When do things rise up to national level for the National Register status or the state register listings? those sorts of things. And is there going to be sort of difficult conversations to have because of changes that happen to these facilities, not only in the courses themselves, but the buildings that are associated with sort of the upkeep and maintenance. And so we might see more coming in.
Yeah, in fact, I'm a member of one of them. The Glenacre uh, Country Club just reached their 100 years. Rainier Country Club is within that same reach, both of which I'm a member of, those two clubs. So yeah, you might be hearing
Yeah,
more.
and I think those are both designed by James as well,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Good.
great.
Okay. So next we move on to the National Registry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, We don't look at many boats, so I'm excited that Zach is here to sort of keep us on task. I am a landlubber. I don't know much about boats, Zach, so I'll struggle through this. This is the schooner Suva. It was designed by renowned naval architect Leslie Edward Ted Geary, who of Seattle in 1924 and was built by the Quan Lee Shipyard in British Hong Kong. Then it was shipped across the Pacific to Coupeville in 1925. So kind of an unusual story in and of itself right there. The Suva is eligible for listing on the National Register under Criterion C as this outstanding example of a pilot house schooner that was designed by this master naval architect. The design really integrates an enclosed and raised pilot house, which is commonly found on workboats with graceful lines of a pleasure cruiser, and represents an unusual hybrid specifically adapted to meet the needs of the Pacific Northwest climate, if you will. The Suva is also significant under Criterion A for its association with Central Whidbey Island's early 20th century shift from a settlement pattern focused on the natural environment used for farming and logging to a society that was increasingly oriented around the environment as an aesthetic and a cultural asset, drawing tourists, drawing summer residences and leisure seekers. So this is kind of a good sort of shifting point. The period of significance begins in 1927. That's the year the vessel excuse me, that is wrong. It begins in 1925. The year the vessel was, how about 1924? The year the vessel was constructed ends in 1972. That's following the installation of a second steering station at the aft deck, which is established by the vessel's current appearance. So when we look at vessels, we're looking for a good date to sort of grab onto, if you will. For those of you that don't know, a schooner is generally defined as any sailing vessel that has two or more masts with a taller mast at the aft, the fore and aft rig sails, and a bowsprit to anchor the forestays and carry the headsail. That's a lot of maritime terminology that maybe Zach can fill us in on. Naval architect Ted Geary, he is by far the most noted naval architect in Washington State. He's UW and MIT trained. He's best known for his elegant fantail wooden yachts of the 1920s, built predominantly for the Puget Sound. The Westward is the one that we listed recently on the National Register. You see on the bottom there. He designed the schooner Suva when he was really approaching the pinnacle of his career. But you can see from these other images, he designed all different kinds of boats. He is kind of the guy. The nomination has an excellent biography of his life and his career. It talks about the significance of the Suva in relationship to Gary's design career and how this vessel is unique among his other projects. Gary's client was a gentleman attorney, Frank Pratt Jr., who commissioned the Suva when he was 61 years old. Pratt owned at least three other yachts prior to the Suva. He read extensively on the history of sailing vessels. He made annotations in reference books about qualities that he wanted for a best boat. And these notes sort of indicate that Pratt likely was a strong collaboration with Geary to determine sort of the character of this boat and the distinctive use of teak and its construction on Hong Kong, all kind of interesting sort of aspects. Pratt's admiration for the land and the surrounding sea and his adopted Whidbey Island location extended really beyond his leisure trips as a yachtman to include decades of investments and efforts to preserve what we know as Eby's Prairie. Today, the Pratt family had acquired and were the stewards of large portions of Eby's donation land claims, include the Jacob and Sarah Eby House, the Ferry House, which directly led to the iconic properties that we know as Eby's Landing National Historic Reserve. These are other buildings that are connected to the Pratt family on the island. The two barns that you see over on the right-hand side are barns that are listed on our barn register. So those are kind of interesting connection as well. There's also a very good overview in the nomination about the life and work of Frank Pratt as well. The boat remained in the Pratt family until 1939 when it was sold after the death of Frank Pratt Jr. It transferred to the Schmidt family, who made a few little modifications to the vessel over the years, nothing too major, before they sold her in 1982. After a few additional owners, the Coupeville Maritime Heritage Foundation, now it's called the Whidbey Island Maritime Heritage Foundation, they purchased the vessel in 2015. After doing some rehabilitation work, the group opened the Suva to the public as an educational and recreational sailing vessel, offering cruises out of Penn Cove along the North Puget Sound from her home port, which is in Coupeville during the summertime. The nomination was written by Holly Taylor, who's a consultant. I think Holly's on the call today. Holly's written several other National Register nominations for vessels, including the Westward that I mentioned before. She's kind of become our go-to vessel consultant. These are just some of the amazing images of how intact this vessel is inside. I wanted to do full shots so you could just see the grandeur of the inside. It's a pretty amazing boat. I'd like to recommend listing of the schooner onto the Washington Heritage Register, of course, and onto the National Register under criterion A and C at the local level of significance. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Michael.
Mhm.
So I would like to hear a little bit from Zach. Zach, some of your thoughts?
Holly might like to say a few words as
Oh,
well
Holly?
to prepare
Sure.
the nomination.
All right, let's do that.
Not to put Holly on the spot.
No, I'm delighted. This was just such a joy to write. And I want to acknowledge that the Maritime Washington funding through the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation allowed us to go forward with this nomination. So it's lovely to have this be part of the larger maritime heritage area. And one of the, many of us are familiar with Ted Gary and his work. I knew going into this that our focus would be in part on Ted Gary and his career. It was fascinating to see the connection of the Pratt family to Eby's Prairie, such an iconic landscape that so many of us are familiar with. So kind of developing that story of how a heritage vessel could relate to landscape preservation was a really interesting aspect. And I'd love to hear what Zach has to say. I know he's familiar with the boat. Also, I believe the board chair of the Whidbey Island Maritime Heritage Foundation is with us as well, Pete Wells. So thank you very much for your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions that come up.
Thank you. Thank you, Holly.
Yeah, great. I do want to say first that I grew up in Coupeville and that I have also previously worked on Suva as a captain and worked for her previously as a marine surveyor. The wooden boat community is small, but I haven't worked for Suva in over a year after the birth of my first son in July of 2024. So Michael and I talked about it, and we felt that it was okay for me to review this application. And I have to say it was really a pleasure. Even having worked on Suva for a number of years, I learned so much from this report. It was, I just highly recommend anybody read it if you have any kind of fascination with maritime history or with Whidbey Island. Really, two things stood out in this report to me. One was the thoroughness of it, and the second was how Suva is really connected to a web of local entities that have kept her going. So with regard to the thoroughness, we've already talked about it. Michael talked about it, and Holly, you talked about it a little, but giving such a great description of the local legendary designer Ted Geary, many of whom or whose boats are still plying the waters of Puget Sound, like Red Jacket and Blue Peter, Malibu, the Theophos, the Lake Union Dream boats. These are boats that I still see out as part of my career, and they're all such a joy to look at and see operated. So highlighting Ted Geary was great. But then also Frank Pratt was the real surprise of the application. I just knew of him as the moneyed guy who had the boat built, but see how deeply entrenched he was in preserving the community that I would later grow up in was really powerful and beautiful. And he made some really beautiful connections and commitments to Central Whidbey, and I was really pleased to read about that. Um, so kudos, Holly. You just did such a thorough application, and I highly recommend that anybody on this call read it. It was really a joy. Briefly, also, the other thing that she highlighted very well was Suva's web of local connections. So throughout her entire history, with the exception of being built abroad, she is so deeply a Northwest boat. Her design reflects our climate. Um, Her designer was the preeminent designer of the time of this area. She has that deep connection to Central Whidbey and eventually EB's Landing National Historic Preserve. And she's been supported through her whole life since she arrived here by talented maritime craftspeople who are still working to keep her going. And Holly does a great job in a different part of the application of talking in a very detailed way about Suva's construction and how the marine professionals are working to keep her structure sound so she can keep sailing. So I thought that was very cool. And what a pedigree, connected to Blanchard Boatyards in Seattle, Seattle Yacht Club, Northwest Sales, Emerald Marine Carpentry, Port Townsend Shipwrights Co-op. These are some entities that I still work with on a day-to-day basis, and some that are long past, but all of them have contributed to this vessel. And I personally believe that by designating Suva with this designation, it also recognizes all of the talented people, past and present, who are keeping her alive or have kept her alive. So just a really a pleasurable read. And I think, Michael, you already said it. Do I need to say the verbiage again?
Please, for the record, yes, please.
Oh, for the record. Okay. I would move that we list the schooner Suva, which during the sailing season is docked at the Coupeville Wharf on Whidbey Island, to the Washington Heritage Register, and recommend that the vessel also be listed on the National Register of Historic Places under criteria A and C at the level at the local level of significance.
Thank you very much for that, Zach. I appreciate that. And call it the question. If there any further discussion well, maybe I should ask, is there any other further discussion for I call a question? Is there a second to that?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay. Okay, if it's moved and seconded, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for that. I found that very interesting. I'm a landlubber now, but I sailed for about 17 years with my wife and I in the Puget Sound, and we really enjoyed sailing. We were called baggers, I guess, boat baggers instead of what is it, stink pots or something. The two differences, but I enjoyed it. We really had a tremendous amount of time. In fact, we actually stayed in Coupeville a couple of times in Penn Cove at I think it's called at that time was it Whidbey Inn, Captain Whidbey.
Captain Whidbey Inn. Yeah.
Yeah,
Still there.
we stayed there. We stayed there a few times. It's been a year since we've been there. But thank you very much. It was really very, very, very much entertaining and wonderful to see. So let's move on to the next one. I think is it Parkade, Michael?
That's correct.
Okay.
This building is a futuristic parking structure in downtown Spokane. And it's historically significant under criterion A for its direct connection to the economic growth of downtown Spokane in the post-World War II era. It was wholly completed in 1969. The construction of the parkade and its connecting skywalks um, tried to stem an increasing retail shift from the downtown core to the outlying suburban areas during the post-World War II area. And at the time, the central city was under siege, if you will, as a result of opening of several new shopping centers, strip malls on the edges of the city, both north, south, and east sides, as a strategic effort to shift retail patterns. The parkade kicked off this new vision of shopping in the downtown core with easy access to the central core and direct connection to various retail spaces via a system of sky bridges. Um, After construction of the parkade, the initial 3 sky bridges were built associated with the projects. Other sky bridges followed in the preceding years. By 1984, the sky bridge system in and of itself had expanded to 10 city blocks with 14 bridges in total, making it the second largest sky bridge system in the nation behind Minneapolis, Minnesota. After World War II, Spokane's population continued to swell and out of necessity. There was sprawl, like I mentioned before, in other areas. And it began to sort of have a concern with downtown businesses who were moving out of the downtown core. Things were beginning to be a little bit blighted downtown. There were vacant buildings. By the 1960s, the physical condition of downtown Spokane district was largely in a state of decline, if you will. Soon after um, that, downtown business owners began to raise concerns about the retail growth outside of the downtown core. And to combat this trend, a group of business professionals came together to form this nonprofit organization called Spokane Unlimited in 1959. They were backed by $150,000 in support. And their corporate mission was to facilitate the planning and expansion of the building of Spokane of tomorrow with the help of the development plan to expand and transform this central area into an efficient, protective, and beautiful core, all led by John Heber, a longtime downtown property owner who served as president of the new organization. I threw in this slide in here. I thought you guys would enjoy this. You recognize that tall guy on the left-hand side with a pink shirt? Such a dapper looking guy. That's me in 1990 while when I was in my undergraduate work in an architecture program. I did a study on the Spokane um, uh, Skybridge system as part of my work. I thought you'd get a kick out of that.
What happened to you?
I got fat. This is the problem, you know. Uh, At first, the group, they hired an outside development firm to come up with a plan to sort of combat this whole idea. The plan highlighted the importance of parking in the downtown core as sort of the central area. But for the group, the government itself wasn't moving fast enough. So the group decided that they would solve this issue themselves. They would form a little subgroup of investors, partners who would facilitate the construction of a parking garage. This is what we see today. Construction began in February of 1966, and it was finished in March of 1967. As I mentioned, there were 3 different skywalks that were open just a few months later. Um, and it formed really the first system of skywalks in the town, although it wasn't the first skywalk in the city. The first skywalk in the city, for those that may not know this, is the connection between, is 1959, the connection between the Ridpath and the Ridpath Motor Lodge. There was a bridge that spanned those 2 structures. That has been removed, I think, right, Lynn? Does that sound right? Yeah, Lynn shaking her head. To create this forward-thinking building, the private investor group hired local architect Warren Cummings Heilman. And so the building is also being nominated a Criterion C as an important example of Heilman's work, whose unusual designs really pushed the architectural envelope in the Pacific Inland Northwest during this post-World War II period. With no 2 buildings alike, Heilman's bold and unusual designs during this period left many to kind of question his aesthetics sometimes. However, several of his projects received architectural accolades, including the Parkade. And the Parkade really helped him to become one of the region's most prominent architects during this post-World War II period. He opened his independent practice in 1952. The Parkade serves as an example of his early work and helped him establish some larger commissions. In fact, he would eventually move his office into the Parkade in one of the commercial areas, which was at the base of the spiral ramp going up into the garage. You'll see a photo of that in a minute. Accolades to the for the building poured in from a variety of sources. In downtown, the Downtown Rotary Club chose the Parkade for an award for city beautification, noting that the Parkade was a symbol of the city's change. Additionally, they gave their Distinguished Service Award to John Heber, who was the president of the Parkade, who accepted it on behalf of other principals. Then in 1968, the Parkade was featured in the AIA Journal with a multi-page spread. It was also featured on the cover. Um, it was termed as a gala garage with a bright spot and a fun place to be. It was also mentioned in Architectural West magazine, 1968. Was featured in full-page advertisements of the Lay Cement Company. It was also featured in Architectural Forum, Architectural Record. At their annual meeting, the garage received top honors from the Washington Concrete Institute in 1968. So it was well received when it was completed. The period of significance begins in 1967. That's the year the Parkade parking structure itself was completed, and it ends in 1969. That's the year that the last sky bridge of the original planned development was completed, which connected the building to the south. There have been many discussions over the boundaries of this nomination because it spans not only private property, but also spans public property. There's questions over the ownership, who owns the sky bridges, who does not own the sky bridges, what's the integrity of the sky bridges. Lots of back and forth, not only with the consultant, with the National Park Service. This is the boundaries that we ended up with. As you can see, the original sky bridges to the north, which you see on the bottom photograph, sort of before and after that's been replaced, at least the upper deck has been replaced, so that has not been included as part of the nomination. And then the connecting piece where it went across the street of Howard has been completely demolished. That's not included. What is included is the connector piece that you see off to the south that spans this plaza. And the plaza is also on a separate parcel. At least half of the parcel is. So this has been an interesting discussion for the National Park Service. They haven't dealt with this before. Here's Heilman's office at the base of the ramp itself. This is not the first parking structure that we've looked at. In fact, we listed the city ramp garage in Spokane. That was built in 1928. That was listed on the National Register in 2012. The nomination was written by Jim Colva. He's a local consultant here in Spokane. These are pictures of the plaza area that originally had a fountain with a sort of open pool of water. That fountain has been taken out, and the pool of water has been filled in now with landscaping, but the border is still there. This is a tax credit project, which is basically complete. They are just waiting pending National Register listing so they can get their tax credits. I'd like to recommend listing of the Parkade to the Washington Heritage Register and recommend the building be listed on the National Register under criterion A and C at the local level of significance. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Do we have a lead for that particular one that's been
That's
signed?
me. Thank you. I was so excited to see the Parkade, the agenda. This is one of my favorite buildings in the state, and so modern buildings and structures, and I just love the name and everything about it. But I did have a couple of comments and a question. Is so Jim Cova, I don't see his, is he here today?
I don't
I don't see
see
him.
him. I think he's traveling overseas.
Okay, so there's no one representing the nomination
I don't think so.
attending.
My
Okay.
name's Slavin. I'm with the Parkade, current ownership of the Parkade. So I'm here, but not
Oh,
nearly as qualified to speak as Jen. So be gentle.
Okay, now this is a really great nomination, I know Jim's work, and it was just really fascinating to read, learn of the history, and also the how this project at the time was so you know, connected to the development, economic development of downtown. The funny thing, I was just in Spokane a couple of weeks ago, and um, in all the times I've been to Spokane, I've always just parked on the street. I've never had an issue finding parking, so I've never parked in the parkade. I parked in the Art Deco city ramp. But I was curious. I just wanted to mention that the spiral ramp is actually a character defining feature of this structure. And that the architect probably, because I know in the nomination they talked about how the architect looked at other garages when doing the research for this. He probably went to the Bon Marché parking garage in Seattle, in downtown Seattle, which has a spiral ramp. And at the time, that was built in 1960. At the time, it was only the second spiral ramp in the country. The first one was by the same architect designer, and it was in San Francisco. So that predates this garage by several years. So my guess is there was some um, they looked at that and incorporated it into this project. And I'm just curious. I know Jim's not here, but I was curious. He mentioned in the nomination that 6 buildings were demolished. And replaced by this garage. I was just curious. Maybe I missed it in the nomination. I was just curious, like what those buildings were and were they vacant? Were they in deteriorated condition? Just as a
Yeah,
historical
I
note.
don't I don't know specifically the number of buildings that were demolished, but there were 4 separate parcels owned by 4 separate owners that the business leaders in town assembled under a ground lease in order to build the building.
Hmm.
And not much to do with the nomination, but as a part of our acquisition of the original 4 families, there was, I think, 27 descendants of that family scattered all over the country that were a part of those original families. Is kind of an interesting side note.
Oh,
And one of the grandson of the original family members is a part of our investment group because he didn't want to let go of the heritage of this building in downtown Spokane. So kind of a cool story.
yeah, great. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's a really cool building. I'm glad to see it. Um, so with that, oh, Doug, you raised
Um,
hand.
I just want to say, born and raised in Washington State.
hmm.
So when I was 7 years old, we went to Spokane Expo. The parkade is the only thing I remember from that trip because I love that building.
You
Is
know,
that
the
because
I
there
was
was an
building
seven.
ice cream shop on the
structure.
main level?
Oh, I don't recall that. I just remember
Oh,
the building and the
okay.
name as Eugenia says,
Yeah,
Parkade. It's
yeah.
like so
Yeah.
appropriate.
Just love it, love it. And I love Michael, your random photo of you who has a photograph of themselves in a parking
I
garage?
had somebody take that with my study to prove that I was there, it was a slide.
Nice.
Yes.
And the fact that you found it like how many decades later. Anyway, okay, off track now. Okay, so I would
Decades.
so I move that we list the parkade in Spokane, the Washington Heritage Register, and recommend that the parking facility also be listed on the National Register of Historic Places under criteria A and C at the local level of significance.
Thank you very much for that, and Eugenia. And is there a second to that motion?
I'll
I'll
second.
second the motion.
Thank you, Lynn. Their discussion, any other commentary before we move forward to the question? Okay, call the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I
All those opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much for that presentation, and I look forward to coming and checking out that garage in Spokane. I am going to be, or that parking, the parkade actually. And
Wonderful. Thank you. We appreciate that.
we will be doing that. Okay, next, I think we have the William and Minna Block House, I think, in Seattle.
Absolutely. Before we do that, Dr.
Yeah.
Brooks has joined us.
Ah, Dr. Brooks.
I'm
Is
not
there,
hearing any comments from Allison. Well, let's review this one
okay.
and then maybe, oh, she looks like she's having problems getting in, maybe.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's go ahead and with this one, and maybe she'll
Yeah.
be able to.
This is a pretty incredible house. This is the William and Mina Block House in Seattle. It's historically significant under Criterion B as this home of noted German immigrant William K. Block. Now, for nearly 3 decades, Block um, served as proprietor of the popular Germania Cafe on the corner of Second and Seneca in downtown Seattle. He was this very prominent businessman. He was a real estate developer. Has notable connections throughout the city in the early part of the 20th century. And Block, over the years, became this beloved figurehead of Seattle's German community at the time. However, there was anti-German settlement around World War I, and a prohibition that followed in the 1920s led to this rapid decline of his influence in the community. Um, in the early 20th century, nearly 1/5 of the foreign-born population in the United States was German. But World War II, as it grew near, the virulent anti-German sentiment swept the country, and Bloch, who was probably one of the city's most prominent German immigrants, if not the most prominent, began to be sort of affected by this hysteria. And just a month after the U.S. entered World War I, his restaurant was closed. Within a year, there were several raids on some of his other businesses and his home, and he was forced to sell his beloved house. Um, as you can see, the home is quite special. It's also being nominated under Criterion C as a dwelling that embodies the distinguishing characteristics of its period of construction. It was designed shortly after the turn of the century. This house is this careful sort of composition of architectural detailing that shows the tenets of the arts and crafts movement um, at the time. With an innate understanding of proportion and scale, the building also serves as an example of the work of significant local architects Clayton D. Wilson and Arthur Lovelace. The home was probably their first collaboration together between the two architects, who would continue to kind of contribute to many notable buildings in the city and the urban fabric over the years, over the courses of their careers, both independently and in partnership. The house retains a very high level of integrity. These are some historic photographs that you can see here. The Block's residence appears in the AIA architectural exhibition in May of 1908. It's the first known introduction of the new partnership of Clayton Wilson. I think my slides are a little off here. Here's Clayton Wilson's work and Arthur Lovelace. While Wilson's work is less known to Seattleites, and these were just some of the buildings, Lovelace had arrived in Seattle just the previous autumn. Together, or Lovelace rather, would become one of the city's most preeminent architects in his own right after the partnership dissolved. Upon its completion, um, the Block residence was celebrated for its magnificence. It was noted as for its splendid exterior and interior that most handsomely was furnished and beautifully arranged. And I just couldn't resist putting in lots of historic photographs because it's pretty amazing interior spaces, and as you'll see, it's largely intact today. It was afforded several photographs of text in the newspaper alongside with photographs in the Sunday Times. Most contemporary description of the home mentioned two rooms specifically. They mentioned the basement decoration, which was hand-painted reproductions of characteristic German scenery. and a spacious top floor, which was the dance hall that was large enough to allow to comfortably occupy 50 people dancing. Um, this is a shot of the second owners with their Detroit electric car here, which is kind of interesting to see. The house itself is often discussed with spectacular parties in town and contemporary sources, including a 200 guest surprise housewarming party headed by a brass band, reinforced by a string orchestra that arrived at the block resident one Friday night late in September, shortly after they moved in. The period of significance begins in 1908, the year the home was completed. It ends in 1918. That's the year that William and his wife Mina were forced to sell the home. Um, the nomination was written by Bridget Hembry. She's a local architect in town who just opened her own business. I'm not sure if Bridget is here on the call today, but I would like to recommend a listing of the blockhouse onto the Washington Heritage Register, and of course, listing on the National Register under criterion B and C at the local level of significance. I just have a few more slides. You can see the grandeur of this place. Even the kitchen is amazing, sort of period piece that meets today's standards. I believe this is the ballroom area up on the third floor, which has been converted into a library. This is the basement, rat's killer, if you will, with its large fireplace. That's all I've got.
Excellent. Beautiful home. Okay. Is there, who's our lead for that one, Michael?
I think I am.
Yeah, it's Bob.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say one thing before I see Ms. Hembry's on
I do see that, yes.
meeting, and maybe she should speak before me. But my previous comment about the parkade with Michael is his celebrity was even noted back then by having photos taken. And you have improved with age, Mike.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that.
I have some comments, but maybe Ms. Hembry wants to speak before me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for reviewing this, and Michael for your presentation. I've had the pleasure of working on this home for about 6 years through Marvin Anderson Architects, and now I've taken over since he's retired. The particular owners right now, the current owners are amazing stewards. The first question is always what's right for the house before they make any sort of modifications or changes, or maintenance. They're very conscientious about preserving it, and you can really see that through 5 owners that have just really kept this home almost in the exact same condition that Block had it. So we think it's a really special place, and we really thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Bridget.
So may I comment now, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
I say quite sincerely, this is a very well written nomination. I was a history major. I'm impressed by the detail, all pertinent, that's in the nomination, and I second the comments commending the current owners because they have really valued the building and helped preserve it, and it is a wonderful structure. Michael covered it pretty well, but the blocks were victims of anti-German sentiment during and after World War I, and then Prohibition. As a small aside, I once had a summer job at the State Archives and went through files of all of the people who were turned in during World War I because they spoke German or expressed sentiments that the war was a bad thing for both countries. And there was a state commission, which is mentioned in the report, that took reports and then investigated all of those. So that kind of fear is not new to our times. But the building is wonderful. The report is really very, very well written. And I'm honored to move that we list the William and Minna Block House in Seattle to the Washington Heritage Register, and recommend that the house also be placed and listed on the National Register of Historic Places under criteria B and C at the local level of significance.
Thank you, Bob, for that. Is there a second?
Second, Eugenia.
Thank you, Eugenia. It's been moved and seconded. I'd like to again open it up just one more time for any further discussion. If not, then I would move and ask the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for that presentation. That was very good.
Thank you all
Okay.
so much.
Thank you, Bridget. So now we move on to the Cascade School, Chehalis. And I'll leave, or do we have at this point, Dr. Brooks on, Michael?
I believe
Hello?
so.
I am on. I am. Here I am. What? Where am I? Am I here? No, the video went away. Oh, hang on. There.
There you are.
Am I here? Okay. Yay.
How are you?
Oh, it's hectic. It's also Rosh Hashanah. So Happy New Year for the Jews. So
All right. So typically you give a presentation. Is there anything that you wanted to share today on, as part of your presentation, or what would you like to do?
I can wait till you guys are done.
Okay, we'll finish that up. Maybe we'll finish the next Cascade School and Interstate Telephone Company, and then we can take a quick conversation there with you.
Okay, great.
That sound good? Okay.
That works for
So
me.
Michael,
We'll do it before we hit the barns at the very end.
yes, that's correct.
Okay, so this is Cascade School. This is down in Chehalis, and it's locally significant under criterion A for its association with the broad patterns of educational development within the city of Chehalis. Now, over the years, the building has been expanded and adapted to the growing needs of the students, the staff. It received several additions and alterations over the years. The first just 1 year or 2 years after it was built, then the next year, 1925, and the last in 1956. When the school opened in 1922, it represented, the beginning of a new phase of school development in Chehalis, which pivoted away from school design of the 19th century toward this new sort of progressive era of school design. The building is also significant under criterion C as this representative example of a resource that embodies its period of construction, an example of its type, if you will, and represents the work of the noted architectural firm based out of Tacoma, initially Hill-Mock and Griffin. Now, educational opportunities in the city arrived really shortly after the formation of Lewis County of itself, clear back in 1854. In the preceding years, the Chehalis school system grew very slowly, sort of expanding to the needs of the population. However, the population boomed in the late teens, tripling in just 10 short years, driven by a flourishing local industrial economy. Such growth in of itself boosted the increased need for public services at multiple levels, right? And of course, it included the new schools for the community's ever-growing adolescent population. Now, the need for the school facilities also coincided rather with a new nationwide focus by architects, by educators, administrators on how educational facilities would be constructed, how they should look, how they should be laid out, how they should be used. This is the former Cascade School, if you will, up on the top right, what the old school looked like, and of course, a picture of the new school that we're nominating today. Previous school design was seen as uninviting, monotonous, it was inadequate, and this new progressive era school design would incorporate, an attractive exterior, fireproof construction, recreational space, gymnasium space, workshops, laboratories, all dedicated, auditoriums, all within the same facility. But more importantly, it would also serve the needs of the students themselves, but would also be viewed as a community space as well. Now, after the passing of bond measure, the district hired the Tacoma architectural firm of Field, and Morrison. They specialize in educational projects. And the new school was designed as a unit plan specifically for expansion. And now one of the partners in the main firm of that was Jack DeForest Griffin, who decided to open up his own firm shortly after this school was built. He's really the kind of form maker, if you will, for the city. He went on to design many other schools, other notable buildings in town, including the county courthouse, which we listed on the register a few years ago. The school itself is almost 80 years old. It was used for almost 80 years, rather, until it was closed in 2019. The last major structure came to the building in 1987, which replaced all those wonderful windows outside with the smaller openings. That's what we see today. The period of significance begins in 1922. That's the year of the initial phase of construction was completed, and it ends in 1956. That's the year the school received its final addition, which accommodated the growth of the school during that post-World War II era. The nomination was written by Julianne Murphy, who is with Rincon Consultants. They're based out of Oakland, California. The owners have recently completed a rehab on the building using the Federal Historic Tax Credits Program. So you're seeing these kind of before and after shots that I'm showing here now. It's now serving as housing. I would like to recommend listing the building onto the state register and onto the national register under criterion A and C at the local level of significance. I've had some discussions with Lynn and the National Park Service as well as to what do we do with these nominations that are kind of in process of being listed on the National Register, but are also tax credit projects. Which photographs do we show? That sorts of things. What we kind of decided on is that the buildings, the documentation that will be in the nomination will be what the building looks like when I send the nomination off to the Park Service. So we'll update it with these current photographs of what it looks like now, which you're seeing in the nomination. I might even run down there and take a few more current photos. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Yep.
So would this be Lynn, or who would be presenting this one?
Yeah, I'll be happy to comment.
Okay, thank you, Lynn.
I really wanted to state how much I enjoyed the strong historic narrative on this nomination. I really enjoyed reading about the development of the Chehalis school system and plans to build this Cascade School. But I also really enjoyed the detailing of the new era of school design at the time. I thought it was really helpful, and I thought it was a good documentation of the history. I also think this is an excellent example of the importance of the national support for the Federal Historic Preservation Tax Credit Incentive Program. And I'm really grateful to R.E. Bennett LLC and Michael McCown and his business partner for having the vision to repurpose and redevelop the Cascade Elementary School building into the Cascade Apartments. I did some research and found that there was a proposal where they did a study to decide what they wanted to do with these two school properties. And I was so thankful to them for having the foresight to purchase the building. And it's really exciting to see how they were able to protect the historic integrity of the building's exterior while converting the interior into well-planned residential apartments that have been incorporated into the neighborhood. I again thank them so much for preserving this historic building from demolition and revitalizing the school for their community to continue to enjoy its rich history.
Thank you very much, Lynn.
Thank you.
So do you want to make the motion?
Hey, Jesus, I see that Julianne Murphy is on the call. I don't know if Julianne wants to say something. She's prepared the nomination with Rincon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I just want to say, I'm very pleased to see this nomination reach this stage. As stated, this is part of a historic tax credit nomination or project rather. And, when the client first came to us to do some research on this, one of the first things that was clear we needed to overcome was some of these later changes. But once we were able to do that initial research and see what a compelling story it was, to display the history of education history in Chehalis and this idea of progressive era architecture in elementary school design, we felt very confident that this property nicely reflects that history. So very pleased to see it reach this stage, and very much appreciate the help from DHAP to see this through.
Yeah. Thank you, Jenna. So Lynn, would you be making the motion?
Yes, I'll be happy to make the motion. I would move that we list Cascade School in Chehalis to the Washington Heritage Register and recommend that the school also be listed on the National Register of Historic Places under criteria A and C at the local level of significance.
Thank you for that. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Douglas. It's been moved and seconded. Now, let's see if there's any further discussion from anyone. If not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? The motion carries. Congratulations. It's great. Okay. We got that one. Now let's go on to the Interstate Telephone Company. I'll turn it over to Michael again.
Yeah. Sorry, my camera keeps popping off and on. It's I got an issue with my camera, but I am here. This is the Interstate Telephone Company. It's historically significant under Criterion A as a resource that has a direct connection to the broad patterns of communication in the city of Pullman. When completed, the building housed the first automatic telephone system in the city. It serviced both commercial and domestic customers. The building operated as the local office for the company. It also had an equipment storage. It was a maintenance facility, and it was the main technical hub for all the local communication network for the city and really the surrounding area for over 50 years. It's an important little hub of a building. Telephone service in the Palouse region really began with the arrival of the railroads. Initially, there was numerous independent companies that were formed to serve a small surrounding agricultural communities. Among these was the Inland Telephone Company, not the interstate, the Inland Telephone Company. They were organized by Colfax businessman and newspaper owner Charles B. Hopkins. He's sort of the father of the telephone system, if you will, on the Palouse. He brought first telephone service in 1884. Throughout the years, there was numerous mergers that have happened over time. With the Pacific State Telephone Company emerging with a big player in the teens and the 20s. By then, they had over 900 customers. The various co-ops got together in the 1924. In the 1920s, they formed the Inland Telephone Company, which would eventually be bought out by the Interstate Telephone Company in 1931. So the building that you're seeing here is part of that bought out and modernization of the company. It was the construction of the nominated building in 1938, who by then had serviced over 22,000 customers. That year, the company, they were on a big expansion and improvement. They spent $350,000, that's $8 million in today's money, on upgrades to facilities and equipment during that time. So a big concerted effort. The building, of course, is also historically significant under Criterion C as a property that embodies the distinguishing characteristics of its type and its period of construction. So type being, a telephone service building, and period of construction in the 1930s. Since its completion in 1938, despite its loss of the interior mechanical equipment, the telephone company building has retained a high level of integrity. It was built to house this new modern equipment. The building still demonstrates through its architecture the qualities that were required to house those advancements, specifically with fireproofing, the use of brick, the use of steel, the use of concrete. We don't know much. Actually, we don't know who the architect is or who the builder are. No documentation on that after lots of digging around. but it remains one of the few standing structures in a rural community in the state in general of a telephone-related structure, and stands an example of these types of telephone structures that were built during the 1930s. The period of significance begins and ends in 1938. That's the year the building was built. The nomination was written by Grayson Houston, who is a field tech for Plateau CRM. They recently completed a rehabilitation on this building for their office. So it's now being used as an office structure. I'd like to recommend listing of this building onto the Washington Heritage Register, of course, and the National Register under criterion A and C at the local level of significance. And this, again, is one where we need to update the photographs based on that work that they just completed. Thank you.
Is there any discussion from anyone that worked on this report besides our lead? Not then, who's our lead this one from Michael?
I am, Lynn.
Oh, Lynn,
So I'll be
okay.
happy to give a report.
Sure.
Actually, I had the opportunity to drive down to Pullman on Sunday, and I visited this building. And I think that David and Jenny Harder made a really wise choice in purchasing this building. The building's exterior is extremely intact, well preserved, and viewed in its surroundings, quite a visually pleasing structure. Honestly, the photographs in the nomination are nice images of the exterior, but viewing the facade in person allowed me to really enjoy the richness of the warm blonde colored vertical scratch brick and subtle architectural design details that make this 87-year-old building an understated gem. The projecting exterior front door surround masonry really enhances the overall aesthetic of the building and adds to the character defining textured brickwork, which really pops when you see it in person. I would like to thank the Harders for preserving the architectural and visual integrity of this commercial building and rehabilitating it for continued use as an income producing property. I will note that parking on a snowy day in winter would not be real fun in the front of that building. It's quite a steep hill, but I just really enjoyed visiting it, and kudos to the owners and their new business. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you very much, Lynn.
Did you want me to make the motion now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I would move that we list the Interstate Telephone Company building in Pullman to the Washington Heritage Register and recommend that the building also be listed on the National Register of Historic Places under criteria A and C at the local level of significance.
Thank you for that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Jackie, thank you very much for that.
Mhm.
And so any further discussion? If none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Excellent. Great.
Good job, Plateau.
Good job. Yeah. Okay. Well, got major work done here today, this afternoon. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Allison Brooks. Allison.
Okay, with everything going on, it is hard to know where to begin. Seriously. Like every time I turn around, it's something else. So let's start with FY25 money that came in September when it was August, sorry, when it was supposed to come in the October before. Our some of you remember our FY25 money was held up. We didn't know if we were going to get it. Kudos to Governor Ferguson's federal liaison, Rose Minor, who fought hard to get us our FY25 money and all the tribes their FY25 money. She was calling the White House. She was cornering Interior, people in Interior. Eventually, we heard that all our advocacy, particularly the archaeologists, went all out. worked. They had tens of thousands of phone calls into Congress and to the White House complaining that historic preservation hadn't released the FY25. And I think that the White House and others never thought that preservation could come up with that kind of advocacy. I'm not kidding you, tens of thousands. It must have been like 50,000 people. It was wild. And the White Rose finally said to the White House, the White House finally told Rose that they had so many calls and so many angry people and so many angry congressionals on all sides of the aisle. They released the FY25 money. It was actually held up by the Office of Management and Budget, which is interesting. I know the National Association of TIPOs kept saying it was held up by Interior, but it wasn't Interior. It was Office of Management and Budget. Russ Vogt was, thinking about doing one of the what they call rescissions, where the president can take back money. So in the end, they released it. So that was good. And now we're trying to figure out FY26. And the question is, both House and Senate in FY26 basically held us level. I think it was the Senate gave the tribes a little bump of $500,000, which for, I don't know how many tribes, 200 and something tribes is not great, but it's better than nothing, right? So it's at least $500,000 more. We'll see where FY26 goes. I think there's concerns about another government shutdown. I think we're all basically tone deaf listening to that one. I mean, we keep hearing it all the time, but we'll see. So the big issue for us from a regulatory standpoint is, of course, the Federal Advisory Council turned everything into emergency orders. Emergency orders means we and the tribes don't get much of a review. We get 7 days to comment. The Cascade transmission line is now an emergency project. It's 80 miles of pipelines slammed down the middle of the Columbia. And we have 7 days to say, we think you should probably relook at this, and they don't have to. It's just like, oh, tell us what you think. You have 7 days to tell us what you think. So that is, everything's changing. The FCC doesn't want to look at cell towers anymore. Everything's an emergency order. Ag is saying if they think there's a categorical exclusion, then they're not going to do 106 at all. The 7-county infrastructure decision on NEPA, boy, you've never seen all these agencies ran with that one. Now they don't think they have to do anything. So it's a really tough time for the environment and cultural resources. So just to add insult to injury, the Washington State budget is not doing great, and we may have to go through another budget cut exercise. So we took 6% last round. We don't know what it will be coming up. It could be another good cut. We can only handle so much because we're a small agency. So we keep getting whittled away. Most of our money has to come out of our travel budget. It's kind of ironic. We hear, why aren't you traveling? And then I have to remind upper management, because you told us to take budget cuts. So there's nothing in the bank. Like, I don't have anything in the bank. So it's just between the federal and state. I would say, let me back up. I would say that compared to the 1980s when I started in cultural resource management, this is actually the toughest time. You've got the irony of starting in cultural resource management in the 1980s was that nobody knew what I did, so they took me at my word, just did everything I told them to. And now they kind of caught up and they're going, we don't like any of this, and sort of rolling us backwards. And of course, the budget is just terrible. So we'll just sort of plod along and do the best we can under the circumstances. I did have a meeting with the General Accounting Office today who are asking me about the National Register. I told them what I told them before, which is we really need 2 National Register staff, not 1. And they need to fund preservation offices to have more National Register staff, because what does it take you, Michael? I said it takes 6-8 months or more to get a nomination through. And if we had 2 or 3 people, we would be able to do things much quicker, much faster, more expediently. We also talked today with the U.S. General Accounting Office about what is the role of the National Register? Should grandma be able to fill out a nomination form? Why does it always have to be, no offense to the consultants, a consultant? Why can't we have a pathway for the general public? And so they're going to go think about that. And overall, I would say that all I do is wake up in the morning and surf that wave. Just surf the wave that's coming, because every day now it is just, you just don't know what's coming. The Federal Advisory Council set to send us new members. That will have a big effect on our work with cultural resources. But, I will give kudos to our staff at DAP. Everybody just wakes up and gets on that DAP treadmill and does their job every single day the best that we can. And that's all we can do.
Thank you,
Yay.
Allison. So what's the bad news?
Yeah, so what's the bad news, right? Well, the good news is we're still all alive. We're still all here. They didn't cut FY25, and they would have taken out us and the tribe. So it would have been no SHPOs and no TIPOs if OMB hadn't released the money. So the good news actually is that nobody realized the power of the preservation/archaeology community when they actually woke up and realized their entire profession was about to go down the tubes. So that I think that's a bonus, and it really woke up our subject matter area to realizing that you have to be political. I gave a talk at the Society for American Archaeology where I said that. I said to the archaeologists, I know you didn't go into archaeology to talk to people. You went into archaeology to talk to things. No, archaeologists don't want to talk to people. That's why they're like geologists, right? Who wants to talk to people? I said, but the reality is, if you want to be an archaeologist, you have to be political now. You don't have a choice, or the profession's gone. Profession's gone. So there you go. And people really stepped up.
That's great.
We still have a lot of work to do, but it's better than it was.
Are you back in Olympia?
Am I back in Olympia? Yes, I am back in Olympia. That's right. I went to Israel. My Delta flight had to avoid a Houthi missile. That was fun.
Glad you made it back safe.
Huh?
I'm glad you made it back safe from the
Yeah,
bomb shelter and all that.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's see, my flight had to divert over to Jordan to avoid a Houthi missile, but then landed safely. And then I only had to go to the bomb shelter once, so that was fine. At 3:46 a.m., I was like, really? Like, if you're gonna try and kill me with a missile, could you just do it at noon? Why would you do it at 3:46 a.m.? But anyway, made it safely, and what can I say? It's tough over there. So, but it was good. It was good for me to see my family. So that was the big thing. I got over there, saw my family.
That's great.
Now I'm back.
That's really good. Glad to hear that. That's good. Well, thank you very much, Allison. Appreciate your commentary as always, and I love the frankness.
We'll just keep riding that wave. That's all we can do. And just make
That's
sure
right.
that everybody in historic preservation is really mobilized. And actually, since we have Eugenia on here, we're seeing rollbacks at the local level too, right? I mean, we just got hit with middle SEPA. Nobody wants to review housing. If there's housing developments, they exempted any kind of state environmental policy review. So we won't see those housing developments unless there's a local ordinance in place. Pierce County just put in a really strong one, but unless there's a local ordinance in place, we won't see any reviews of activities like housing developments. So it's a really tough time.
Yeah.
It is. It's really changed the preservation landscape in Seattle for sure, in the state. So
yes. And for me,
thank you, Allison.
the same can be said for the healthcare industry and healthcare communities as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
It's a wave for everybody, a large wave we're all riding, and I hope it doesn't get much higher. But we'll have to ride it. All right. Well, thank you again. And now I guess we're going to move to the Heritage Barn Register element of the agenda.
Yeah, that would be great. I have just a few.
Good to see you, Allison.
There we go. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Great. We're at round 38, meaning we've reviewed barns 38 different times. And this round we've got 15 barns. They seem to come in waves depending on our grants. And obviously, as Chris mentioned, we've got a new grant cycle coming through. So nominations are still coming in, but these are the ones that are ready to go. And the first one is down in Clark County. This is the Raz Dairy in Richfield. This is a 1950, so a pretty late barn. It's a Dutch gambrel. It's got a matching little gambrel milking parlor. This is a concrete block building. At least the first story is concrete block. It was developed by Henry Raz Sr. as a dairy farm. And note the cleanliness of the design of the interior sort of space. Which you can kind of see down at the bottom here on the right versus a barn that was built in the 20s or 30s. All this stuff is kind of covered up to make it clean and sort of sanitary. Our thought process is from the 50s, right? This next barn is also down in Clark County. This is a circa 1927 barn. It was built as a replacement barn. It's got a gable roof. It's got light framing on the inside. It's got this great house. It was built in 1896. It was purchased by the current owners just this year. This is another one down in Clark County. This is the Barn Dog Farm down in Brush Prairie. It's a gable barn. It's not a Dutch barn. It's a gable barn because the roof is on top of kind of that second story loft space. It's board and batten siding. It's got light framing inside as well. Don't really know much about the history of this barn. These are newer owners. This is in Island County up in Langley. This is a 1905 English gambrel barn with attached lean-tos on either side. It's got multiple outbuildings on site. It's owned by the Fossick family, has owned it since 1945. This is also in Island County. This is up in Coopville. It's actually closer to Keystone, which is south of the ferry dock. It's outside of EB Landing Reserve. This is a really kind of a hybrid building, if you will. It's a 1907 salt box with the attached lean-to on the far right side that you see there. It's owned by the Whidbey Island Camino Land Trust. They know it as the Keystone Farm is what they call it. I'm not sure where that name comes from. We know it as the Robertson Homestead. That's the original family that owned it. This is a barn where we don't know much of the history either. At least we don't know what the original use was, although we know it was used by the CCC. Peeled logs, super unusual inside, right? This is in the Cape George community, which is outside of Port Townsend. If you know Port Townsend is sort of the peninsula, it would be on the Port Townsend would be on the east side of the peninsula. Cape George is on the west side of the peninsula. It's been incorporated in the community since 1959. This is a Carnation bunkhouse, originally a carpenter's shop / farm stand, has numerous uses over the years. There are several other barns that are part of Carnation that we've listed individually on the on this barn register. So this would be the third one that we've looked at. This is built in 1928. It's 28 feet wide by 155 feet long. Obviously, it's adjacent to this sort of slope site, so the back site is open down towards the bottom. You can see there. This one's up in Kitsap County. This is outside of Paulsbo. It's a simple gable barn with that side entry door, built around 1912. It's got board and batten siding. It was built by Peter and Louise Glubb, who owned the farm until about 1941. So, 30 plus years. Great barn as well. This barn is kind of interesting. Note that built date, 1970. This is an English gambrel style barn. It's outside of Silverdale. It's owned by the local Episcopal Church. It was built by Keith Williams, who was a prominent builder in the area. And it was basically a hobby farm for him. And it's noteworthy due to its this later date and this use of plywood sort of rigid frame system. It would be, if listed today, the newest barn on our barn register, meets our 50-year cutoff. We're going to start seeing more of these types of structures as we as we sort of hit the, we're up to 1975, going to be 1976 soon enough. This is the Suimatsu farm, better known as the Thorson Suimatsu farm. Thorson was the first owner. Um, and it's located on the west side of Bainbridge Island. It's a broken gable design, built by Halvor Thorson around 1915. It was sold to Akio Suimatsu family in the 1950s. They were one of the families who got sent off during World War II to the internment camps. So there's a Japanese connection there too, to Japanese families. Um, this is the Tangled Thicket farm, or the Robson Thompson barn. It's a 1920 Dutch style barn. It's got a shallow pitched roof. It's 50 by 70. It's unusual for this diagonal siding. And when I first looked at this, I was like, no way, this is totally new. But you can see by looking at it closer, this is the structure. It may have been covered up by other siding, horizontal siding on the side. We don't know, but it's definitely older siding. This is up here in my neck of the woods in Olympia in Thurston County. This is around 1935. This is new owners, don't know much about the history of the farm. Doing some research, I found that a gentleman called A. Davis was the owner, at least in 1952. It's right adjacent to the road. It's got a T-shaped footprint. It faces away from the street. This is also in Thurston County. This is 1932 Dutch style barn. It's 55 by 82 feet. These are newer owners as well. It was owned by Philip Bradu, 1962. And in the 70s, it was referred to as the Skookumchuck farm in the 70s, but don't know who the original owner was. This is the Thordardsen barn. This is up in 1927. This is a gambrel barn, a Dutch gambrel specifically. Remember, it's got that extra little cant on the eave that makes it a Dutch gambrel instead of an English gambrel. This is most likely built from a plan service. And the reason why I know that is when I see barns that have this sliding hay hood door, this is a typical WSU extension service plan done in these Dutch gambrel designs. So I'm assuming that's probably where it came from. This was up in Port Roberts, which is a big Icelandic community. A couple nominations ago, we looked at a church that was up there that has a Icelandic connection. These guys were important sort of players in the community, if you will. They ran a farm store with this building, and adjacent to this building was called Ben's Store. It was purchased by the current owners in 1987. And the final building I wanted to show you is up in Whitman County. This is the Bush Farm. It's a 1909 English gambrel. It doesn't have that extra little eave at the eave line that's got an attached lean-to on the side. That's original. This is outside of Colton on the Palouse. There's been some modification to the building, at least in the backside. You can see here in this bottom photo, it's got corrugated metal that was installed in the 1950s. It has some unusual framing on the inside because it doesn't really have any sort of second floor sort of space, just one big giant open space with little interior support. I'm not sure how it's still standing. It was built by Matthias Busch. The owners provided this very detailed family history as part of the nomination. That is the group of 15, and I would like to recommend that we list all 15 to the Washington Heritage Barn Register.
Thank you very much for that, Michael. Really very, very interesting, all these different barns and different styles, and just really interesting to me to see this. Find it fascinating. I'd like to go ahead and ask for a motion. Do I hear a motion to list the nominated barns to the Washington State Heritage Barn Register?
I can make the motion.
Thank you, Lynn.
I would move that we list the nominated barns listed by staff to the Washington State Heritage Barn Register.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Zach. Okay, we have moved and seconded. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, then I'll move for the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. We've got several barns now to be listed. Thank you very much for that, Michael, and thank you, everyone. Michael, is there any other things that we need to wrap up with?
There are. Well, let me just tell you one thing, one important thing that with our
Sure.
15 listed barns today, this pushes us over the 900 mark for
Ooh.
buildings listed on the National Registers. That's a pretty amazing feat, actually.
Wow, now the goal
Wow.
is to get to 1,000
1,000. I might
barns.
be dead before
Oh,
then. I don't know. When are we going to get the additional staff person? Uh,
yeah,
I think Allison just commented about additional anything.
yeah, right. In my next life, maybe.
Yes, yes, yes. I do have several nominations that are, in the queue in various locations. I mentioned in the past, I usually have about 40 or 50 in various states of being ready, and everybody always waits till the last minute. So it's a constant sort of crazy rush at the end. But I do have enough nominations to probably meet again before the end of the year if we can get it penciled in if possible. I was looking at various schedules. Thank you for people that sent me items. I had to laugh at sort of the list because they were all from, hey, these are dates that work to these are dates that don't work for me. So let me just show you this little sort of Excel spreadsheet, if you will, of what I got from folks. I did not look at Allison's schedule that closely, except for these two items. So the black is no, can't meet. The green is yes, I can meet these days. Um, I don't know what the will of the group is. If we want to try and meet toward the end of the year, if you want to just lay low over the holidays.
Trying to figure out what month I'm in looking at this.
Sorry. This is October, and then the red line breaks to the November dates.
Can you
So
go past?
Michael, I don't see my name on there, but I'm pretty flexible right this moment. I mean, I'm pretty flexible and open both October and November. I just didn't see my name on there, but
Yeah,
I do.
that's because
If
you
we
didn't send
do
me
Zoom,
any dates.
if we
Yeah,
do
I did.
Zoom,
No, I
what?
didn't. Yeah, I responded with I'm available for October or November. I think I
Oh,
sent
okay.
that
I'm
back.
sorry. I must have missed it. Yep.
Yeah, so it's
Hey,
wide open, but I do suggest that we, as you say, nail it down quickly
Yeah.
if we're
We
going
also
to.
have a couple vacancies coming up, which are due at the end of October. So Alice and I need to get together on that. It might make sense to meet after we get a couple of new members on board.
Mhm.
Not that we want to get rid of Eugenia and Bob sooner than later, but that's the reality of
Well,
the.
getting two new members on board might take us into the early part of the first quarter of next year.
I mean, I'm looking pretty good for November 5th. What does that look like?
Can you see
I'm pretty
November
open.
November dates on there, Allison? That's these over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Doug is out of town forever. I don't know where you call him Doug.
Well,
There.
is this just October that's in front of me here?
Yeah, I can do November 13th too.
These are November over here. These are all November dates.
No.
Yeah, I'm available.
Michael, I have a question. You mentioned wanting to do a 2-day thing. Is that still?
Alice and I did want to do a 2-day thing. We thought maybe we could take a
Wasn't it
day for some
a full
training.
2 days? I think we wanted to do a training and then maybe the second day nominations, but we seem to be having to stick to Zoom due to lack of travel money,
Okay.
sadly.
Would it make sense to do it in Olympia then?
We could do it in Olympia. I think we could pay for you out of federal, so that would be okay.
So for all the Seattle folks, they're less than 50 miles, so no overnights. Um,
Why don't we check and see if we can get I think we're supposed to be hybrid if we have it in person. So let's check to see if Lot lets us do something hybrid.
And if it's a 2-day, I'll need lots of notice to book that out.
yeah. So maybe, so it sounds like maybe November might be a better scenario, except for
think
Doug.
like I could do the 13th isn't bad, the 14th in the morning isn't bad, at least for me.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too.
But if we did a 2 day, I'm assuming, Allison, we would want to do like a afternoon on the 13th, allow get people time to get over here.
And that's where it gets messy because wait, so now you have me confused. Yes, I could do the afternoon of the 13th and then the morning of the 14th.
Well, no, November 5 is my birthday, so if Eugenia and I are ousted by then, I'll invite Eugenia down for a party.
Woohoo!
Michael, I'm out further than you have, so
You are. I didn't go
it's
out
the
that far
first.
because, yeah,
Yeah,
you're out to the like clear out, right?
to the 15th.
To the 15th.
Yeah.
You know, with these kinds of things, I mean, if
I mean, if I can't make it, I can't make it.
yeah,
It's
right. If you
fine.
can't make it, you can't make it. Totally understandable. It's hard to get everybody, and we've got two members that aren't here at the meeting. I don't know what their schedules are like either. That would be Betsy um, and Stephanie. Betsy probably being the more critical one as a new member. Stephanie's been around for a while, so she kind of knows the system.
I think Betsy gave you her dates.
Yes. This is Betsy's line here. Didn't go out as far as we're talking about to the 14th or 15th. Do you want me to send out like a true doodle poll for some dates in November?
I would suggest we do yeah, the poll would be great, and maybe between the 10th and the 15th or something.
Okay. I'll throw out some other options in mid to late November and see where we land. How about that?
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. And maybe we can get Doug at a meeting if it's one of the later dates.
Easier.
Great. The only
Okay.
other thing that I should let you know is all the nominations from the last cycle have come through for listing. No real issues. The only one that's pending is there's a few more nominations that came through, Jackie, as part of the big Monster 25 archaeological spiritual sites. There's 7 left that haven't been listed yet. I was told by MPS not to send in the full batch all at once. So I've been sending in batches of 5, 6, 7. So I've got really one more batch to send them in. But everything else has been listed, no issues. We did get a request that you guys might be interested in just yesterday to do a removal for the National Register of the trolley system in Yakima. Alice and I haven't had a chance to sit down and talk about that, but just something to be aware of.
But I have a thought here, but maybe I shouldn't.
It's very controversial.
Right.
Hmm.
I have a thought which maybe I shouldn't express, but it dawns on me, given the I don't want to say ignorance, but close to ignorance of most legislators about what we do and what the Historic Preservation Committee does. I think it's at a low point in the 30 years I've been around.
Yep.
I think it would be helpful to send when we have nominations and when we've approved motions for structures or like golf courses in a legislative district, to send a notice to the senator and the 2 representative staffs about it, because and I know it may add to the thousands of things they get notices about, but at least it informs them something's happened in their district.
I think Michael does send out
He
notices.
does?
Yeah,
Yep.
state legislators.
I do,
Yeah.
Bob. Yep. It's
Yeah,
gone out to not only the state congressional delegation, but the local, city, county offices, whoever that is.
Well, I think that's great, but do you ever get any response from any of them, or is it just?
Every blue moon, we get a letter from somebody saying, "Yeah, you please nominate this," or they every blue moon you'll get somebody writing a congratulatory letter to the owner. It's pretty few and far between, but it happens once in a while.
Okay, well, you're ahead of me in the parade. So thanks for doing that.
We had a legislator that came in to one of our meetings actually when we met in person up in the Capitol building that had some pretty significant opinions on the level of designation to a property and wanting to remove certain data from a nomination. Do you remember that, Allison?
No.
That was for one of them was for the house, a house up in Everett.
Oh, I think so.
And another one was for the boat, the John Steinbeck boat.
Oh gosh, yes, I remember that one too.
Yeah.
Right.
The Western, what is it called?
Western Flyer.
Western Flyer, yeah.
Is there any way to suggest but not require that the nominees and if they get this and everything that they write their legislator, because then it would be a citizen voter writing them versus state.
We can't really do that, honestly.
Oh.
And it's not that the National Register they're interested in. The big issue is legislators don't understand SEPA and that it's just a checklist. And the whole issue right now is cultural resources are stopping projects. So here's a good one. I got a call from the Republican caucus. Habitat for Humanity is concerned that cultural resource reviews under SEPA are stopping Habitat for Humanity for doing their job. And I said, okay, can you give me an example? Oh, no, no, they can't give me an example. I'm like, okay, what Habitat for Humanity project got stopped? Silence. And I said, well, SEPA is a checklist, so it takes 5 minutes to fill out, 3 minutes if you're really good at it. And I got, oh. And I said, so I don't understand what's being stopped. So I offered to have a meeting with Habitat for Humanity. Well, I think it's ironic that Habitat for Humanity does not like cultural resources, since I think they're aren't they kind of religious? So anyway, so they don't like cultural resources, and so I said, let's have a meeting, because I would love to know what project got stopped, and I would love to know why a 5-minute checklist is so hard to fill out. So we'll see
But what I'm
happens.
suggesting isn't anything to do with SEPA. It's just an elected is
No,
getting a
but
citizen to write
right,
them a
what I'm
letter.
saying is that that's not where we're winning hearts and minds. We have to get the real hurdle here isn't getting support from nominations. It's getting people to understand that we are not stopping projects and that actually we're really good at balancing cultural resources and project development.
Well, you're fact-based, but a lot of people aren't, but it's a good effort.
Well, exactly. That's right. That's why I ask people, okay, so what Habitat for Humanity project did I hold up? And then I can't get an answer. It's all anecdotes.
Yeah.
So I just keep working away at it. We'll see if Jet from Habitat for Humanity will meet with me to discuss his crisis. It may or may not really exist.
Okay. Well, again, thanks everyone for joining this afternoon and being with us, and looking forward to the next meeting here with Michael once we set down a date and time in November. Hopefully that'll work out for everyone. And I look forward to seeing you guys in Olympia, Allison and Michael, when I come up. Or come down, actually.
Yeah,
I'm 48 miles from Olympia, Michael, so I don't qualify.
Yes, just on the edge.
Hey, Jack, if you ever drop down into Richland, Jet apparently lives in Richland. Jet from Habitat for Humanity. Maybe you should make
Ah.
Note there are multiple habitats around Washington State.
He's the executive director at Habitat for Humanity.
Yes, but there's a King County one, there's a Seattle one, there's habitats all over. There's a national.
Oh, yeah.
They're all independent.
He's
So
the Tri-County. He's
Yeah.
Tri-County Partners.
Just
You know him.
yeah.
Anyway.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. We're adjourned.
Thank you all for your review. Much appreciated. And I appreciate the diligence of everybody reviewing the nominations. It's very helpful on my end.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Michael,
you
for
for
all your
your
Thank you,
work.
hard work,
everyone.
Michael.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank you
Michael.
so much.
Have a good rest of the week,
Have a-
everybody.
Bye.
Okay.
You
And
also.